This is my intro music. Welcome to the video. I hope you like it lots, so don't forget to subscribe and click the thumbs up button. Now let's react.
Hey, hi, hello there, and welcome to part 3 of me watching Does Amberlynn Reid Have Borderline Personality Disorder? Therapist Reacts. And I broke this up into 3 different parts because it was getting very long, and I apologize, but I really am trying to keep the videos shorter. They're still probably going to be over 45 minutes, but I'm trying to keep them shorter than that. Excuse me, I have a hair on my nose. Anyway, I'm not going to go into my huge preamble like I have on the other 2 videos, so if you're on the third part of this, you know what's going on at this point. Thank you to everybody who's been supporting the channel. Thank you to my subscribers. Thank you to my members. You guys rock. Thank you to everybody who got me to 11K. You guys are amazing. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. Don't forget to like the video. You may as well subscribe if you're liking this kind of content. And I'm going to link everything in the description down below. So he is sped up to time and a quarter. What else do I need to say? That's pretty much it. All of my other caveats are in the other 2 videos, so please go watch those, or at least the first 10 minutes of one of those to understand my take on this. He is a professional. He's going to come at this from a very objective, or try to come at this from a very objective kind of point of view. He is going to take Amber at her word, for the most part. For the most part. So if you're coming to this video hoping that you're going to watch a professional therapist tear Amberlynn's BPD diagnosis to the ground, that's not going to happen. So if that's what you're looking for here, sorry, this isn't that video. And that's pretty much all I've got. So let's go ahead and jump back into the video. So who is it in my comment section that said he very professionally read her to filth? And I think that's a bad thing, I would assume, with the word filth in there. He is very carefully couching what he says when he is skeptical of the things she says. So,
and obviously when it comes to a partner, because I am talking to them a lot and they become almost like someone I'm reliant on. And I know that's also due to my BPD. When I say reliant, I mean I'm reliant on them like mentally, emotionally, due to like the fear of abandonment, which is really where BPD is like rooted from.
Okay, I know I'm pausing a lot, but what she said there does make a lot of sense, that we talk about the identity instability or the feeling of emptiness. And so yes, finding a lot of emotional support and your own sense of identity in your relationship with that other person can be very characteristic of BPD. And then that's also why when there's any perceived risk of that being taken away or you losing it, you will fight and you will hang on and you will do some scary and potentially dangerous things to try to keep that sense of identity that you've tried to build for yourself around this other person.
I hear what he's saying. I do. I hear what he's saying there, but the behavior that I've witnessed Anna, gosh darn it, Amber, I've never seen Anna break up with somebody, that I have seen Amber display around breakups doesn't strike me as what he's describing. It strikes me as someone who is trying to maintain control, not as someone who's trying to maintain a relationship, even a shitty relationship, right? And again, he doesn't know the lore, and I don't encourage him to do that. But we've seen her break up, well, like 5 or 6 times now. I don't know. I don't know the exact count, and I'm not going to take the time to figure it out because I'm lazy right now. My point is we've seen her break up enough times that we know her breakup pattern. I think somebody just put a video out that was the Crystal era and the Destiny era breakup side by side, and it was like really spooky, scary, the exact same fucking thing. But that's kind of the point. Her breakups usually seem to be about control and maintaining control of the relationship and the individual that she had the relationship with, not so much maintaining the relationship. He's talking, in my opinion, he sounds like he's talking about somebody desperately trying to maintain a relationship that has become part of the person's identity. Like if my partner and I broke up, you know, we've been together for so long, it's just like, it's my partner and I. We are together. We are a couple. If we were to break up, we are no longer a we, right? That's part of an identity. Okay? It's not like my only identity, but you get what I'm saying. It feels like when Amber breaks up, Amber doesn't have a we. Amber has a Amber and, right? It's Amber and whoever she's dating. Amber and the girlfriend. So when that person inevitably breaks up with her, first off, it's a betrayal because how dare you break up with the Amberlynn Reid? And secondly, because it's not a couple identity, it's not a relationship identity. It's the identity is that person is betraying her as, for lack of a better analogy, as the dominant in the relationship. And she doesn't like that, right? I guess maybe the power in the relationship, because I hate to liken that to a dom sub relationship because it's not even close. But I just like Amber is clearly like views herself as the power in the relationship, and whoever she's dating is clearly the lesser in the relationship. And I'm not entirely sure what the words for that are. I'm sure there are, and I just don't know what they are.
The last thing I want to share is a quote from here. Feeling alone is very common for people with BPD, so common that it's in the criterion.
Feeling alone is common for damn near everyone. So if you need to hear this, I don't know who might. If you feel alone, you don't have BPD. And there probably isn't anything wrong with you. I'm not trying to downplay your feelings of aloneness because it sucks to feel like you're alone, and almost literally everyone is going to go through that. So there's nothing wrong with you if you feel alone, even when you're surrounded by people. I will say, if you have those kind of feelings, the best thing to do is just to talk to somebody about it, because that helps you not feel alone. But she's going to sit here and she's going to hammer on about, oh, I'm alone even when I'm in the room with people, or even when I'm, like, I think she says, even when I'm hugging someone, I feel alone. It's like, yeah, lots of people feel that way. It's a common sign of a lot of things, but it's also just a common thing. So I don't want people to listen to her go on about this and come away from this and be like, oh my God, I have BPD. There's something wrong with me. No, it's really okay. Just find someone you trust to talk to, and let that be the first step. I don't want anybody thinking that there's something catastrophically wrong with them because they feel alone.
Which in parentheses it says chronic feelings of emptiness, but you're not alone. Approximately 18 million, or nearly 6% of adults in the United States have been diagnosed with BPD. That shocked me. And it definitely...
That also shocks me, and I looked that up. That number is slightly misleading. This is from the NIH, National Library of Medicine, and this article, they estimate the prevalence of BPD in the general population between 0.7 and 2.7%, not the 5 or 6%.
That's a major difference.
They say in primary care, the prevalence is 6%, and the rate is 11 to 12% in outpatient psychiatric clinics and 22% for psychiatric inpatients, which makes sense. The more intense of a service that you are providing in the mental health world, the more likely it is that you're going to have people with personality disorders.
Yes, but that's the difference between the general population and a very specific population. Amber says, in the world? She says adults in the United States. That's a general population comment.
That shocked me.
In the general population between 0.7 and 2.7%.
So that actually should be around that 0.7 or that 0.27. So 0.7, 0.2, 0.3% of the population has been diagnosed with BPD. He goes on to talk about within certain groups that are already, anyway, 11.
Not the 5 or 6%. They say in primary care, the prevalence is 6%, and the rate is 11 to 12% in outpatient psychiatric clinics and 22% for psychiatric inpatients, which makes sense.
So in groups that are already being treated for mental illness or mental instability, the prevalence of BPD is very high. Actually, that's kind of high. That's completely different, though. That's a completely different statement. That's like saying, I'm just going to throw random numbers out here. That's like saying 0.2% of the population of the United States has blue eyes. And then within that 2% of that population, 50% of those people have a dark blue ring around their blue eyes, right? That's a different statement than saying 50% of the population of the United States has a blue ring around their eyes. That's not true. 50% of the population of people with blue eyes have a blue ring around their eyes, right? Completely made that up. I don't even know if that's a thing. That's what's going on here. Now, in Amber's defense, the book is telling her this, which having a statistic like that be so radically wrong in a book like that, and then on top of it, earlier he was talking about the book having just cut and paste clinical language for the DSM directly into the book. I'm beginning to question the quality of this book. And I don't mean this in like a dickish kind of way, but first off, it's presenting difficult language to people who are already questioning if they have BPD or not. And then it's giving them this astronomically wrong percentage. 6% of the adult population of the United States is not what this says. It's only 0.7 to 0.3 if you round up percent of the adult population. And this doesn't even say adult population, it just says general population has that. So why would it jump from, in the United States, from 0.7 at the highest to 6? That's a big jump, you guys. And again, that's not Amber's fault if she's reading that directly from the book. Now, maybe there's a point in front of that and Amber misread. That would never happen. But maybe what Amber was actually reading was 0.6% of the adult percentage in the US has BPD. That would be more in line with what what his paper is saying here. So part of me wonders if there is a point in front of that percentage and Amber either didn't read it or didn't see it or chose not to read it. I don't know. That would put that percentage in line with actual numbers. But 0.6 would be more in line. 6% is not correct.
The more intense of a service that you are providing in the mental health world, the more likely it is that you're going to have people with personality disorders in that group. But in the general population, we're looking at a lower number of maybe 2.7% at the highest, at least based on this article, compared to the 6%.
It made me feel less alone. And this first chapter was honestly so just like validating. Like I've already done the whole criteria thing because when I was diagnosed, I had to go through all that. But it's like just doing it again and like thinking of it differently with like a whole different mind frame.
I don't believe she ever did this before, but whatever.
I'm able to be more like transparent with myself because I'm not ashamed anymore.
She's all up in her making shit up zone.
For the longest time, like I was ashamed. That's why when people would be like, Amberlynn, I think you have borderline personality disorder, like I would become so defensive. Like I don't understand why. I don't know why anyone would ever be ashamed or embarrassed of something that they went through that caused them to have this. Like
I think I said this when I watched her video the first time, but isn't it interesting? Isn't it convenient for her that now that she's decided that she has the BPD, now suddenly, well, I don't understand how anybody would be ashamed of this thing that I have. Oh, that's convenient. But at the time, she's obviously stating that she did find shame in it, which means she thought it was shameful. But I'm the ableist one over here.
Like, it's not your fault. Like, so if you're watching and you're struggling and you have any sort of like shame or embarrassment, don't.
Just know that the Amberlynn Reid has absolved you of your shame, and you don't need to have shame or discomfort or any of those weird feelings that you may have about your diagnosis. You don't need to do that anymore because the great martyr that is Amberlynn Reid has cleared you of that. Now you're fine.
Simply don't. All right, you guys, we're gonna do it.
I can get behind her last message. Yes, I think part of the importance of talking about mental health, having statistics on the prevalence of things like BPD,
Having correct statistics.
is because there is a lot of stigma associated with it. Like I said before, it can be a very isolating disorder. Once people recognize that about you, they are very wary of becoming attached because of the stories they heard.
I guess maybe I just live in a bubble, but I literally had never heard anything about BPD. When people did start telling me, oh yeah, there's just, like, all this stigma around BPD, I was like, I mean, I'm not going to say there isn't because I live in a bubble, but like, I've never heard about it. I've never heard anything about it before. I didn't even know it was a thing. So I didn't even know there was stigma around it. And I'm not saying no, there's no stigma around BPD. I'm just like amazed that I've never heard any of this. And everyone who ever talks about it is just like, there's all this stigma around it, and there's all this bad news around it, and everybody hates you if you have BPD. And I'm like, if you walked up to me and told me you had BPD, I would just be like, all right, cool. I have dyslexia. Do you want to go get a coffee? I mean, it's would not affect me because I know jack shit about it, or I didn't up until this point. Even now, knowing the limited amount that I do about it and having Amber be y'all's spokesperson, self-appointed spokesperson, I still wouldn't have a negative reaction to it because every single person that has come out and told me that they have BPD or that I have interacted with online who has told me they have BPD, like, none of y'all seem like that's, like, you all admit that you have it, and that's cool, but none of y'all seem like somebody that couldn't be couldn't be hung out with, None of you seem weird to me, I guess is where I'm trying to go with this. Amber, whole other story, but that's Amber, And again, I'm skeptical of the BPD diagnosis anyway. But I guess my point is like, my opinion on the matter has not changed, but I didn't have a negative opinion to begin with. Maybe if I had already had a negative opinion, it would probably be a completely different, like, mental space that I'd have to work through at that point. And maybe it also comes from, like, I come from a family and a group of, like, a circle of people who, there's something wrong with everybody I know. So, if you came up to me and was like, there's nothing wrong with me, I would be like, really? That would make me suspicious. maybe that's my problem. But anyway.
Because of the stigma associated with having a personality disorder. And so I think understanding that and recognizing that you are more than just a diagnosis of even something as big as a personality disorder is important and can be empowering to know that, hey, this is what's going on and there are treatments for it. I can do things to manage this. It is not a death sentence. And I think that's an important part of what she's doing. Again, not saying whether she has a diagnosis or not, or whether she's even a great person or a role model to follow, but more so that just being able to share that message and have that model of being willing to talk about it, not in a glorifying way, but just like, hey, I'm going through it, I'm dealing with it, I'm going through the process. I think that can be very powerful. All right, we're gonna dive into the second video where she is opening up about some of her BPD symptoms and Amazon haul. I'm going to skip the Amazon haul and
dude, that's where half the fun is.
Try to find where she's talking about her symptoms.
Oh, come on. You want to see that washcloth haul.
So this is the next video right after the first one.
Stream today. So fingers are crossed that everything goes good. I want to talk more. It's our little BPD segment of my vlogs. So on top of doing EMDR therapy for it, I also am doing workbooks that was recommended to me.
Okay, real quick pause. EMDR is not necessarily the first line that you would go to when it comes to borderline personality disorder. Like I mentioned earlier, that would generally be dialectical behavior therapy.
A lot of you have been telling me that there are ways to do EMDR through virtual. I've never done it before. So that was interesting to me because I've literally known like one person, maybe two, that have done it, and they both had to be there in person. So that's kind of cool that there's a way to do it virtually. So I guess I must revise that Amber could have been doing it via the interwebs, which kind of reinforces for me that she might be using BetterHelp. I know that's a speculation that people are having. And I know it's something I speculated on because of how quickly she switched doctors, supposedly, because she goes on, is it this video? It's the next one he reacts to, where she's basically like, yeah, my therapist and I are not going to work because they don't do DMT. They only do EDM or EMR or whatever the hell this is called now. Too many goddamn letters. So basically she broke up with that therapist but she's immediately starting with a new therapist. And I'm like, that's really fast. So either she got a recommendation right off the bat, which is possible, very possible. Or she did something like BetterHelp, where she was basically like, just assign me a new therapist. I've never used BetterHelp, so I don't know if that's how fast that works, but according to all of the little infomercials that everybody does, it is that fast. Like, you just are like, I don't click with this person, give me a new doctor, and they'll assign you a new person. So that just kind of reinforces that for me. Isn't necessarily a bad thing that she's using BetterHelp. I don't like the concept of BetterHelp. BetterHelp itself, the company, has a lot of bad rap. There are other companies that are like BetterHelp, who actually seem to be reputable, question mark, or just maybe not as heavily researched as BetterHelp. So maybe she's using one of these other companies. I don't know. And just because a therapist is online or offers online services doesn't mean that therapist is necessarily like lesser or quacky or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with online therapy. Personally, I prefer in-person therapy, but you know, if you can't do in-person therapy, this is your next best option. So, you know, I don't have anything against that. I just personally don't like BetterHelp, and that's basically where that stands. I don't know if that's what Amber's doing. She's never said. Will she ever say? I don't know. So we'll find out.
To when it comes to borderline personality disorder, like I mentioned earlier, that would generally be dialectical behavior therapy. I'm not here to critique her therapist or whoever her person is. It may be that they're just trained in EMDR and that's what they specialize in. And I can see it having practical theoretical benefits for somebody struggling with BPD. Usually it's associated with trauma. And so EMDR is really good for helping with the emotional reactivity associated with trauma. And so I can see how that can treat some of the concerns associated with borderline personality disorder. When it comes to DBT, what you're talking about is first, yes, the emotional regulation is key. That's the first step that any DBT therapist is going to work with you on, is being able to be aware and manage those emotional reactions. But then what you develop later on is interpersonal effectiveness. And this is how you change the patterns of your relationships. How can you respond appropriately to perceived provocation, or even recognize that somebody was not trying to insult you or someone's not trying to reject you or leave you, and then being able to communicate assertively instead of aggressively. So I'd say like EMDR is not a bad start. Like I don't want to hate on her therapist or whoever her person is. So it just caught me by surprise a little bit that someone would default to EMDR for something like a borderline personality disorder. But again,
wasn't Amber looking for EMDR though? I can't remember the very start of this bullshit journey that we're on right now. Didn't she start looking for that and then switched over to the other one? I'm going to make post-it notes. Where the I need to find post-it notes.
Again, their process is their process. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just curious.
In my last vlog, I talked about the 9 criterias that are part of the BPD diagnosis and how you have to meet at least 5 of them. So within the 9, each one has its own like clusters and multitudes of symptoms and traits and characteristics. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you guys an example / symptom or thing that I deal with within each one of those things. Because as you guys know, I suffer with all 9 out of the 9 listed in the criteria, which is very unfortunate and it's hard to handle. So for each one, I do have a multitude of symptoms.
What was his face when she said that again?
Each one has its own like clusters and multitudes of symptoms and traits and characteristics. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you guys an example / symptom or thing that I deal with within each one of those things. Because as you guys know, I suffer with all 9 out of the 9 listed in the criteria, which is very...
He's trying. Did much better that time. Post-it notes. Now I just need a pen. Got something that resembles a writing utensil.
When I do it. So number 2 is a pattern.
Okay, I appreciate that she's going through some real world examples of some of the challenges that she has faced, especially like in this context of romantic relationships. I talked about wanting some examples earlier, so this would be helpful in informing kind of that diagnostic process. Again, I want to say that this example by itself does not qualify her to be diagnosed for borderline personality disorder. Of course, there's only one criterion and you could be talking about a lot of different issues here. But what I would pick at is some of her language, and this would be kind of some of the DBT and CBT and me coming out and saying like, hey, romantic relationship.
Text and urgency. I will literally frantic. So it's a lot of characteristics. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you guys an example slash symptom or a thing that I deal with within each one of those things. Because as you guys know, I suffer with all 9 out of the 9 listed in the criteria, which is very unfortunate and it's hard to handle. So for each one, I do have a multitude of symptoms, and I'm not going to sit here and name off every single one. Like, that is so much information. And also it's a lot of things that I'm embarrassed about. It's a lot of things that I am ashamed about. I'm not ashamed of the
Didn't you just get done telling us not to be ashamed?
the BPD diagnosis, but I am ashamed of some of the things that I do and have done. So number 1 is frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. So something I do with that, when I'm in a long distance relationship and I'm having an argument with my partner and they like hang up on me or they're ignoring my calls, I will
You mean all of your relationships? That's how all of your relationships start?
literally frantically call them at least like 30 times in hopes that they will answer me.
So you did this exact same behavior to Zachary Michael recently. What was your excuse then? Because you sure as hell weren't in a relationship with Zachary Michael, so you don't have to worry about abandonment, because God knows he would love to have just left your ass somewhere. So what was your excuse for treating Zachary Michael like this? Abandonment?
The best way I can describe it is like it's this fire burning like urgency that I literally cannot control. Like, I get super anxious and I'm scared. I feel like they hate me. They're never going to talk to me again. So I just frantically call, text, and I genuinely look insane when I do it. So number 2 is a pattern.
Okay, I appreciate that she's going through some real world examples of some of the challenges that she has faced, especially like in this context of romantic relationships. I talked about wanting some examples earlier, so this would be helpful in informing kind of that diagnostic process. Again, I want to say that this example by itself does not qualify her to be diagnosed for borderline personality disorder. Of course, there's only one criterion and you could be talking about a lot of different issues here. But what I would pick at is some of her language, and this would be kind of some of the DBT and CBT and me coming out and saying like, hey, you're saying that you can't control this. We're just not at a point where we've learned the skills or developed the skills to be able to manage and control that kind of situation. But yes,
I don't know what CBT is. I'm not making a post-it note for it. We're sticking with EMDR and DBT. That's it. That's all I've got.
can get the feeling of anxiety and panic that, oh my gosh, this person's never going to talk to me again. I've lost them forever.
Of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships characterized by alternating between extremes of idealization and devaluation. So this is something that you guys have actually noticed that I do, is I will be in a relationship with someone and I'll come on here and I'll be like, they're so perfect. I have never loved someone as much as I love this person. Like, this is the best relationship I've ever been in. That's me idolizing them. But if they do
That's you love bombing them, but go on.
one small thing that makes me question if they love me, or makes me question their loyalty to me, or if I can trust them, or
Their loyalty to me.
whatever it may be, instantly those feelings go away. And I think, oh my God, like, they hate me. So I really, truly hate them in this moment. Everything is bad. Everything is bad. And like all of the good just like completely vanishes. So
With the exception of Beck, I don't know I've ever seen her do that to a girlfriend during the relationship. She will do that she will do that reliably, clockwork almost. When she starts a new relationship, she will trash talk the old ex. The ex, right? She does that every time she starts a new relationship. She will start to trash talk the ex or exes. During the relationship, she does start out love bombing the person. But what happens, what I've observed is as the shine starts to come off the beginning of the relationship, she will start to down talk and nitpick the partner. Not like, oh my God, they hate me, therefore I hate them. I've never heard that kind of language or seen that kind of behavior. And I'm trying to think if I ever saw it with Beck. I've only during the relationship. Now, during the relationship, even with Beck, she definitely uses devaluation, and she definitely tries to demoralize all of the D's. She does all of that, right? She really tries to break the partner down. But I've never heard language to the effect of, oh, they don't like me, therefore I don't like them. The only time I see her full on turn on a partner is after they've become an ex and she has a new girlfriend. She usually keeps her mouth shut until she gets a new girlfriend. And then once she has secured a new girlfriend, she will start to smack talk the old one. That's usually when the smack talk begins. The only exception was Destiny that I can think of. And maybe Crystal. Because I wasn't here for the nuances of the Crystal breakup, right? I don't remember if she like bad talked Crystal. But I have watched her do this with every doctor she's ever gone to. She'll start off talking about how amazing the doctor is and how they're like the best that ever existed, and then 24 hours later, suddenly they're the devil. I mean, she does this with every new every new diet she starts. She's done this every time she's gone on Ozempic. She does this every time she starts Weight Watchers. Suddenly it's the best thing that ever existed, and then it doesn't even make it 48 hours, and she's like, oh my god, it's horrible. So I have seen this behavior, just not in her relationships. Now that's me. So maybe there's something I've missed. That's entirely possible. But though I have seen this behavior, it has not been in her relationships until after after they have broken up with her. So
that is what people call the black and white thinking. Number 3.
Yeah, black and white thinking and cognitive behavioral therapy labeled as a cognitive distortion.
Okay, that's the CBT, isn't it?
And that's definitely something that her therapist should be drawing her attention to, this pattern. And recognizing that it's a pattern is important, so that when we start having those kinds of thoughts, it's important that we don't let our feelings dictate how we are responding, but really evaluating the situation, using our emotional regulation and distress tolerance skills to bring that emotional intensity and level down so that we can think clearly. Am I engaging in this pattern of black and white thinking that has gotten me in trouble in the past?
3 is
no. My thinking patterns are just fine, Dr. Dr. Isaiah. I like how he says we. He says we a lot. We are our thought patterns. We need to be aware of how our thought patterns work. Do we? Do we? No, I'm kidding.
Is identity disturbance, which is markedly and persistently unstable self-image or sense of self. So something that you guys have actually noticed is I adopt people's personalities or behaviors or
We'll go with adopt. Sure.
or the way they speak, and it's something like I genuinely cannot control.
Mimic, mirror, absorb.
Number 4.
Yeah, so in combination with what she was talking about, the extremes of the relationship, what I've heard from clinicians, clients with BPD
This is
will
interesting.
come off very likable at first because they are talking like you, they seem to share the same interests as you, and they're very warm and effusive because that's part of the idealizing part. Like, you're the best therapist I ever had, man. All my other ones are terrible, and they just were not the right person for me, but you are it. Like, I see we have so much in common, all of this stuff. And then slowly, as they get more comfortable with you, you start seeing that there is less substance to that either therapeutic relationship or in a interpersonal relationship, that actual relationship, than you thought initially. I wouldn't say this is intense.
I could believe that during the love bombing phase that Amber comes off that way. I could believe that might be part of Amber's mirroring and mimicking, because I know that those two behaviors are part of socialization, and they're a socializing survival technique, a social survival technique. When you the individual are put into an unfamiliar situation, or you are surrounded by an unfamiliar group of people, you will tend to try to fit in. Most people, I know some of you are going to be like, I never fit in. I'm the perfect individual. Cool. Most people will try to fit in, And so that's where the concept of mirroring and mimicking comes in, and the whole like code switching and that kind of stuff. But it's usually a temporary thing, right? It's not usually a complete overtaking of personality and a complete overtaking of language and vocabulary and that kind of thing. It's usually it lasts for as long as you are with that in group, or that you are interacting with that in group, unless then you become part of the in group, which is ultimately the goal usually in these situations. And then you fully adopt it. You don't lose your personality, you just adopt those traits into your personality. Amber's the exact opposite. She just completely tries to adopt it completely and starts to mirror it. Like, she tries to become the other person. When she was with Crystal, she was quiet, she was shy, she didn't raise her voice very often, she didn't make a lot of crass jokes. She was very calm, is maybe not the word I'm looking for, but you know, she wasn't like off the walls all the time. She was annoying as fuck, don't get me wrong. I don't know how Crystal put up with her as long as she did. But then when we saw Amber and Destiny get together, Amber was swearing every fifth word. She was constantly making innuendos. She was loud. She was very, very obnoxious. Then she got with Beck. She toned it down quite a bit. She still would make the occasional off-color joke here and there, but for the most part, that very loud, very out there behavior that she was displaying with Destiny, she really brought that back down with Beck. We weren't to Crystal levels again, but we also heard a shift in accent when we moved from Crystal to Destiny. Definitely we heard the shift when we went into Beck, the Beck era. And when she stopped dating Beck and started dating Wifey, we really heard a shift in dialect. A lot of people were calling it long before I caught on to it, but there was like a major shift in dialect in that one. And then as soon as we stopped dating Wifey and she moved on to the Abyss, she started drifting more into that Cali girl accent that she really wishes she has, but she really doesn't. That's really not her default accent. I think the other major shift to notice is when she really started getting into TikTok. You'll notice that she really started absorbing a lot of the youth talk and a lot of slang and a lot of behavior that is not age related for her, because Amber's in her mid 30s at this point, or closing in on her mid 30s. So, but she's acting like she's like a 19-year-old. I know 19-year-olds that are more mature than Amber. Never mind. That's an insult to 19-year-olds. Anyway, my point is, you can see where the major influence in Amber's life is and where Amber wants to be fitting in by what particular behavior and language patterns she's displaying at the time. That's the difference between Amber and her absorbing of personality and her complete mimicry and mirroring of people versus you started a new job in a new office. You want to fit in, or you at least want to have a smooth relationship with your coworkers. So you try to not rock the boat, and by not rocking the boat, you take on certain behaviors that are typical of your office, right? Everybody's done it at some point. Even if you did a retail job, you try to take on that climate. You try to fit into that climate of that job. I just use jobs because almost everybody's had a job in some kind of like group setting, right? Not all of us have. I don't know anybody who's always been self-employed, right? More power to you if you have, but almost everybody's had the experience of starting a new job with a group of people, right? And that's kind of my point. Those of you who haven't, going to a new school, everybody wants to fit in, right? It's rough, but that's part of fitting in, is like you learn the climate of the groups, you figure out which group you want to belong to, you start to mimic the behavior of said group. You may not even be conscious that you're doing it, but that's how you get in, right? That's how you fit in. But it's not typically a complete overtaking of your personality. It's an addition to the personality, right? You're not going to have, the typical person is not going to go in and just completely revamp themselves in order to fit into a group. It's not impossible, and those are usually very extreme situations, but that's the difference between Amber. Amber does completely reinvent herself in order to snag a new girlfriend, usually. And that's why it's so incredibly noticeable. And then she's like, no, you guys have always been like this. No, you haven't. And I can show you in the videos that you've put out on the internet for the last 11 years that you've not always been like this, right? Excuse me. So therein is the difference. Anyway, I've been on my tangent now.
Intentional manipulation, but it's part of the pattern of borderline personality disorder.
In Amber, okay, so I guess in my point, for Amber, it is intentional manipulation, wherein the normal average individual, I don't have better words, I'm sorry, it's not necessarily intentional, but it is still a subconscious form of manipulation. Everything we do is, though.
And that people start getting a sense that, hey, something is off with this relationship.
Impulsivity in at least 2 areas that are potentially self-damaging, for example, spending, sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, binge eating, etc.
I have a hard time with this one.
So I actually never realized that the way that I eat and my eating issues could be due to having BPD, but it turns out it very well could be.
You have binge eating disorder. What? This cat. Oh, well, okay, you have binge eating disorder when it behooves you to have binge eating disorder. Like, are you just now putting... Anyway, I'm sorry.
Number 5 is reoccurrent suicidal behavior, gestures, or threats, or self-mutilating behavior.
Don't you have to have 2 of those, though? Like 2 or more of those, didn't you say? So if we're going to go with binge eating disorder as your one of those hyper activities, what's your other one? Reckless driving? I guess we can... I'm sure there's people who will say spending, but I'm still not convinced she's that big of a spender. I still think she has some management of her money. Maybe. I mean, and I know there's people who are like, oh my god, she's gambling. I don't think it's that bad. I don't know. I just don't see the other one. What's... Smags? Smags? In her dreams, maybe.
So sometimes when I'm having like an actual full-fledged meltdown, I threaten suicide. I have suicidal ideation. I do...
Yeah, okay, well, first off, the whole point of ideation is...
I want to make it very clear, I will never do something to harm myself.
I don't know if she thinks by saying this and by putting that little trigger warning there, if that somehow is going to keep the video of hers from getting flagged. I don't know how sensitive YouTube's going to be to this particular topic. So I don't know. I guess we'll all find out since we are all reacting to it.
But in that moment, during that meltdown, more than anything else in the world, because of the pain that I feel, because when you do have BPD, like the pain that you feel is literally overbearing. But
yes, hence why you cannot sit here and tell me I would never do. That literally is the point. You don't know.
Because of that pain, I genuinely do not want to be alive anymore in that moment.
Yes, that's the point. In that moment, you make a rash decision. Did you just get done telling me that? Just get done saying, oh, this is why I have BPD, because I make rash decisions. You might want to look up the definition of rash decision before you start trying to tell me that you would never do something.
I have actually embarrassingly documented a moment of me having that before. It was during like 100 days of uploading. I think it was in like 2019 or...
Before you have this reaction, dear sir. Before you have this reaction, dear sir. Anyway. Amber likes to use this particular threat as a form of manipulation, and because she knows it gets reactions out of people. She has done it many times. This isn't the only time, this one time that she's talking about. She has used it multiple times on her channel during multiple eras. She has used this particular threat on multiple girlfriends in order to get her way. It is safe to say that Amber has probably used it in multiple situations throughout her lifetime, because she is aware of the reaction that it's going to get, else she wouldn't continue to use it. We will probably hear her use this language in the future, because that's how Amber works. Just FYI. It's also why when she does it, a lot of people don't react to it the way she wants them to, I guess is the politest way to put it. And it makes her mad.
2020, a video of me expressing that I felt suicidal.
And I know he is reacting to it in this way because he's very... You can tell he's very surprised, and there's probably a bit of worry here, because that's how you should react when someone says things like this, especially as a therapist. Keep in mind, again, he is not fully aware of the Amberverse and the lore, which again, this is how normal people react. This is what people from outside the Amberverse looking in, this is how they react, because they don't know. And if this is literally one of the only videos of hers you've ever watched, this is what you're hearing, right? This would be and should be concerning to you if you've never interacted with this.
I didn't say those words completely, but it was how I was feeling in the moment. You guys couldn't see that in the video, but I was hurting. I was hurting really bad.
We knew because you kept mentioning it every 5 seconds.
And a lot of people was calling me a liar, and in return, it was actually just making me feel worse. Like, this is hard for me to open up about, like, extremely hard.
Yeah, by the way, guys, this is our fault. Just letting you know. Making sure that you guys understand this was our fault somehow.
And it's things that, like, I've always suffered with in private. I remember one of the
When has any of this been in private?
first times that I actually expressed out loud my suicidal ideation. I was 15 years old, and I
Who the fuck taught her suicidal ideation? I need to have a very long word with you.
actually was sent to a mental hospital. But again, I would never in a million years do anything to hurt myself. It's just in those moments, like during a meltdown, you hurt so bad that just seems like the best option.
I'm pretty sure I reacted to this when I watched this video the first time, but like, stop explaining to me what ideation is, and stop explaining to me what in the moment is, and stop explaining to me like no one else on this fucking planet has ever had this particular fucking expression of emotions and these thoughts and this particular downturn in mood. You are not a fucking snowflake. You are not the only person to have ever gone through this. And the fact that you use it as a form of attention and then blame your fucking audience because you didn't get the reaction you wanted out of it, that's what this is. She pulled something she did pull something like this during her 100 days of uploading or something, because I was here for it. And it was bullshit. And she got backlash for it, instead of a whole bunch of people like, oh my god, Amber, we love you so much, don't leave us, oh. And she got called out, and that made her mad, because she didn't get ass pats and sympathy. And she's still mad about it, clearly. And it's our fault, the audience's fault, that she feels this way, and she felt that way. And she hides her pain from us, you guys, and she never talks about her pain and her mentals and her feelings, and she never cries. She's not a crier, you guys. I think that was Anna, actually. But my point is, Amber, shut up.
So it's a
Yeah, I mean, she's not wrong.
And this poor guy, he's trying to be a therapist. This poor guy.
Suicidal ideation is unfortunately a common symptom across many psychiatric diagnoses. And the scary part is that you can say all you want that, I'd never do it in a million years. But then in those moments, like she's saying, if you're talking about somebody who has BPD, that overwhelming feeling of pain, isolation, rejection, coupled with the impulsivity, it's really hard to say what someone might or might not do because they don't feel like they're in their right minds at that moment.
And that's the whole point of the impulsivity. maybe look up the definition of the word, Amber?
And so that's why it's important to have coping and safety planning in place, emergency numbers to call, people who you can rely on for support, because especially from a liability point of view for my clients, I'm not going home with them. I don't want to go home with them. I don't monitor them 24/7. And so it's important for me to be talking to, if they're a teenager or a child, their guardians or their parents, or if they're an adult, loved ones around them, family members who can support them and be checking in on them, as well as them having access to emergency numbers if needed.
I think that was a really important moment for him to share with the rest of us, that like he is a therapist, but he's also like a person, right? he's not with you 24 hours a day, kind of a thing. And I don't want people to take that as kind of a he doesn't care moment, because that's kind of the point of setting you up with a safety net, is because he can't be with you 24 hours a day. And him saying, I don't want to go home with you, that's not an I don't care statement, right? That's I mean, he's a person too. He has a family too. He has a life as well. And you have to acknowledge his humanity as well. The other downside to this, though, is, he's talking about, as an adult, you need to have, or he as a therapist of an adult wants to see a safety net of people around that person who's going to check in on them. Amber doesn't have that, right? Amber usually doesn't have that. She may or may not have people in her orbit who are friendly, usually because they are friends of whoever she's dating at the time. Right now, she has her mom, and that's pretty much it. If her mom doesn't keep track of her, she's got nothing aside from 911. And that's part of the problem with Amber in this situation, because she's like, oh my God, I'm not like other people. I wouldn't ever do anything with my ideation, but if she felt that way, who are you calling? What if you call your mom one night and she's out with her boyfriend and they've put their phones on silent because they're having some adult time, I mean, who's next on your list? Who do you call next? Zachary Michael? Please don't. That kind of a thing. Like, that's the problem here. Amber doesn't have a support network. She doesn't have a safety net. She doesn't have people around her she can fall back on. She wants us to believe that she does, but she doesn't. And that's what makes this kind of sad.
But this is also why I feel like it'd be very challenging to open up about your mental health online for strangers to watch, because, like I'm reiterating so many times, I don't see the full picture on here. I see what she chooses to present, and it looks like she edits a lot less than other YouTubers, but at the same time, I'm still not going to be able to pick up on all the nuances of everything that she's experiencing, because that's just not how the medium works. And so she was talking about being judged over that one video where she was expressing feeling very depressed, very isolated, and wanting to end it all. And people were judging her, evaluating her, oh, you're not telling the truth, you're just playing this up, or whatever they might have been saying. And I could see how that could make things feel a lot worse.
I understand what he's saying. And if this was a one-off, he would be correct. But the problem also lies, and he has said this on more than one occasion, and I keep reiterating this, he is not part of the verse. He's not part of Amberverse, right? He doesn't know the lore. He's not part of the time. He doesn't know the timeline. He doesn't even know what video she's talking about. He has to take her at her word. The video was even the way she says it was. And even has to take her at her word that the reaction was the way she says it was. I vaguely remember this. But that's part of the issue. And again, he's doing his damnedest to be very neutral. I don't want to say objective, because he's not really being completely unbiased. Maybe objective. He's not being unbiased, but he's trying to be as neutral, objective as he can be given the situation, right? So, and that's the other thing, like, he's not here to tear her down. He's taking what she's saying as if it were true because he's not going to be part of the Amberverse. Please, sir, do not do so. There's no way in hell to get him caught up, and nor should we try. And I mean, this is how it looks when someone from the outside looks in.
Fleeting thought, and I don't want anyone to worry about me, please. Like, this is just another
Don't worry.
one of those symptoms that I suffer with. So number 6 is affective instability due to a marked reactivity of mood. So for example, intense episodic dysphoria, irritability, or anxiety usually lasting a few hours and only rarely more than a few days. So this is very much like my mood swings, where something so small could happen, but I feel so strongly about it. So a good example of that would be
I feel strongly about a lot of things if you haven't picked up on that.
if I send a long, sweet message to my partner saying like, I love you, I've been thinking about you, I miss you, like, I can't wait to talk to you again, just whatever it may be. And like all they send back in response is love you too. That triggers something inside of me so hardcore where I feel uncared for, I feel unloved, I feel unappreciated. And it absolutely like sends me into this like abandonment feeling and I spiral. At least
Okay, I know you all saw me laughing at that. The only reason I was laughing was because like almost anyone would be bothered by that. You put a lot of thought into this message that you're sending and you get like a K or a thumbs up.
Me too. I think that would make anybody irritable. By the way, if you're somebody that does that.
So that's what I was laughing at. That's almost a universal thing, but of course this is not a universal symptom. It's brought out as a lot of things in BPD to an extreme degree where for her maybe that might mean rejection. Whereas for people who don't have BPD, it might be annoying but not devastating.
My interpretation. Not a therapist. I think it irritates her. Well, first off, yeah, it annoys anybody. If I were to write any kind of like heartfelt message to anybody and they would just respond with like, cool. Are you listening to me? But anyway, I think one of the reasons why it sets her off so much is because, as we saw with the Destiny texts, the Destiny DMs or whatever they were, she uses it as a form of manipulation, and she uses it as a way of trying to get control of a situation. So, like with Destiny, who masterfully handled the situation by giving her 1 to 2 word answers, which really just kind of set her off. Amber was trying to leave these big, long, emotionally charged messages. You don't care about me. You're abandoning me. You're doing this. You're triggering me. You are doing to me. You are causing me. Your actions are affecting me. You don't do for me. Amber was trying to use her messages and her text and her constant, because again, those messages are very, very closely bam, 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 bam. Amber was using that as a way of hounding and trying to manipulate Destiny into coming and picking her up faster and coming and hanging out with her sooner. They were broken up. Destiny wasn't her girlfriend anymore. They had broken up at this point. I don't even know if they were living together anymore. And Destiny was just responding with, I mean, Amber was leaving like blocks of text, and Destiny was just responding with, okay, I will, I am, that's not true, and other things like that. Just real brief messages. And if you're not fighting back like that, she has nothing to feed off of, right? But she's also not winning the fight. Like, she has no indication that she's winning the manipulation, right? That she's affecting you. And because it's such a quick response, most people take that as I'm being blown off. Whether that's your intention or not, most people will take a 1 or 2 word answer to a long block of text as a being blown off kind of a thing. And so that's why I think she responds negatively to it, is because even when she's sending a long, sweet message, I think that's just another manipulation tactic for her. And when it doesn't land the way she wants it to land, I think that's when she starts to get irritable because she's not getting the confirmation that her manipulation is working, or she feels like she doesn't have control over the situation. I don't think Amber feels abandonment or anything like that. I mean, maybe she does in certain situations. Everybody does. But I think for her, it's more of a control. I think for her, it's more of a fear of a loss of control. I hear her say all of these things about abandonment and do they love me and this, that, and something else. But I really honestly think what she's really meaning is, do I have control of the relationship? Do I have control of the situation? I don't think she really means being abandoned or any of that kind of stuff.
Makes me anxious and worried, and sometimes it sends me into a meltdown, and sometimes like I'm genuinely just like frantically journaling about it.
Like her and her damn journals. Like this anxious and worried. She might be anxious and worried, but I don't think it's because, oh, do they love me? Do they love me not? I think it's anxious and worried over, oh, do I have control over them or don't I have control over them?
Number 7 is chronic feelings of emptiness. So that's pretty explanatory. Sometimes like I feel so lonely that I genuinely feel like I'm the last person on earth. So as I'm editing this, I'm realizing that I was way too vague.
It's way too vague. I need to make you feel even worse for me
with that answer. But for me, when I have chronic loneliness, which is quite frequently, it is heavy, it is painful, it sends me down major depressive episodes.
Because no one knows what it feels like to... No one knows what it's like. Be the bad man. Be the sad man.
Like, I can be in a room with 10 people and feel lonely. I can be in my room by myself and feel lonely. I could be hugging someone I love and feel lonely.
But do you drink alone with nobody else? Because when you drink alone, do you prefer to be by yourself?
It doesn't matter.
Sorry.
Sometimes the loneliness, like, genuinely makes me feel like I am not loved by a single person on this planet, and I am not cared for by a single person on this planet.
And as she's talking about this is something that I struggle with a lot of my clients, especially when we're doing stuff with like DBT and CBT. It's like, well, it doesn't feel that way, right? Like if she's saying she's hugging her significant other, her romantic partner, right? And that is a very clear sign that there's affection, there's a togetherness there. And she's saying, I don't feel that, I still feel alone. And this is why we can't run our lives based on how we feel, because those feelings are not always grounded in reality. And that's a lot of what DBT and CBT kind of get at. But
look here, reality. You and I need to have a talk.
A lot of times we need to take those steps to emotionally regulate, bring down our emotional level so that we can think more rationally through what is actually true, what's actually going on here. And I am curious, as she's talking about these very personal things, obviously I haven't dug through all the comments on her videos and things like that, but I am...
Don't do it. Don't do it. Danger, danger, Will Robinson.
I'm curious what her community's response to these sharings are, that it does seem very open and vulnerable.
Danger, danger. Just need a little red light.
Whether misguided or not, she is sharing something that is affecting her deeply. And so I'm curious what the level of support and interaction has been like for those of you who are familiar with her channel.
Remember, this is before the second video.
And it sends me down like a pretty bad depressive episode for sure. Number 8.
Yeah, it's our fault.
Is inappropriate, intense anger or difficulty controlling anger. So for example, frequent displays of temper, constant anger, or reoccurrent physical fights. So for me, I am not like a physically abusive person.
Sure, Jan.
But I have done some yelling. I'm not gonna lie about that. If I felt uncared for or like not seen or unheard, which is actually a BPD symptom.
This is dragging on. I'm probably going to end up splitting this up just because this is long for me.
Sometimes it genuinely can lead to like loud yelling with like hysterical crying. So the last one, which is number 9, which is transient stress related.
Loud yelling, threats, hysterical crying, and punching walls. But I'm not a physical person, you know. I've never admitted to hitting anyone.
Paranoid ideation or severe dissociative symptoms. So
look, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. I just want to point that out.
Sometimes I feel completely detached, like from myself and from my memories. So that's why sometimes I can share something from like my childhood that genuinely hurt me and I could seem like unbothered, or I could like nervously laugh about it, while other times I can share the exact same story and cry about it. So those are just some examples of like the multitude, and I'm telling you, a multitude
I'm getting punchy at this point. Sorry, guys.
Of things that I deal with that I didn't share. So those are just like a few that I wanted to just like give you guys a little look into, because I'm telling you, this is a lot of information for me to absorb and for me to share. I'm a bit overwhelmed and I don't want to overwhelm anyone else. And I feel better sharing this part of me, because all of these issues that I've had for so long, I've been like, what is wrong with me? What is happening?
We are not your therapists. We are not your doctors. Most of us are not your friends. I would say none of us are your friends. Quit sharing this shit on the internet.
Finally, there was a name to it, and I was ashamed. And that's why I didn't tell you guys when I was first diagnosed, because I was like, what, are you joking me? And
You told us immediately after you got diagnosed. Whatever.
slowly I've realized there's nothing to be ashamed about. Like, yeah, I'm ashamed of some things I've done in the past, of course, and some things that I currently do. But like, I cannot show you guys that I'm improving unless I show you guys certain things that I have done and certain things that I do, you know, a year or two down the line, be like, you guys, remember when I told you I did A, B, and C?
You don't have to tell us shit, girl. We can watch it.
I haven't done A, B, and C in 6 months. So
I'm looking forward to that day. Let's put it that way. I'm looking forward to the day where she can say, I didn't do A, B, and C for 6 months. I mean, it's only 6 months, but for her that would be a long time. I think she thinks she's gonna get a little chip for it, but she's not. This isn't AA. But it's never gonna happen.
So I know as I do more of this workbook, there's going to be a lot more topics of like more symptoms and more things like that. So I will share more of that when we get to those chapters.
Well, that didn't age well because she immediately stopped sharing this with us, so.
Yeah, so again, ending on an empowering and uplifting message, I think, like she said, there's power in being able to share, even with an unseen audience, what you're struggling with, what you are working on, because a lot of the stigma and the challenge associated with these mental health disorders is that we want to keep it hidden away. We think other people will think this of us. People will hate me. People will disown me, will reject me. And then it can be very freeing to break from that belief and say, this is just what I'm dealing with right now. And no matter people's responses to it, there's at least power in being able to name what's going on. And she said that having that diagnosis finally organized, put all of these random seeming things into one complete category of BPD so that she understood this is the pattern that my life has been taking, and now I can do something about it. So I've got no arguments with that piece. I think that makes a lot of sense.
You poor innocent summer child.
I'll just end going back to this piece here. For anyone who's following along, and if you're concerned that you might have BPD based on some of the symptoms that she's talking about, and you're like, hey, that kind of happens to me too, remember that it is kind of a diagnosis of last resort when there's no better explanation. And a lot of these symptoms are characteristics in other diagnoses as well. So just because you check off a couple boxes does not mean you automatically have borderline personality disorder. Again, I'll point to this C criterion where the impairments are relatively stable across time and consistent across situations. That's what we're looking for as like one of the hallmarks and defining characteristics of a personality disorder, is that this happens no matter where you're at and across a broad period of time. So this is a difficult watch. I don't have much of a final conclusion for you all. Again, I gave my thoughts as she was talking, and it helps to have her thoughts to kind of organize what I would like to say about personality disorders in general, borderline personality disorder specifically, and some of the treatments associated with it. Again, I don't have the history to say whether she's being genuine or if she's a very good actress or whatever. I think the conversations about mental health are important.
I know he's wrapping up here. He's wrapping up here. I'm gonna let him finish, but yeah, I'm gonna let him finish. I'm sorry. I don't know why I interrupted. Apologies.
Again, I have some concerns about potentially self-diagnosing or coming into a therapist's office and saying, I have BPD and treat me as such. I think that would be on the professional to do their own due diligence and come up with a diagnosis of their own, and whether that confirms or rejects that hypothesis that the client brings in, that's a separate discussion that you all have to have together. But let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on what she has said? If you'd be interested in more, I guess, kind of deep dives like this, following along with her vlog as she talks about her treatment and therapy
Yeah, you opened that door.
process. For now, please do like and subscribe. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this video, and I'll see you all next time.
All right. I'm just gonna let y'all know now right here. I probably broke this video up because this was a long one, and I'm really trying to not have videos so incredibly long. So yeah, I broke this one up into 2 pieces, which unfortunately made this a 3-parter. Apologies, but it's just the way it's going to be. Sorry. I guess, I mean, I talk about this every time Amber wants to lament about her mental health. I don't doubt that she has something wrong with her. I don't believe she's doing anything about it. I mean, yay, she's got a workbook that she did, the first 2-3 chapters in and then stopped doing altogether because she's not going to share it with us anymore, you guys. That's fine. You shouldn't have been sharing it with us in the first place, but I also don't believe you're doing the workbook anymore. I don't believe you're seeing a doctor. I don't believe you're doing the workbook. I don't believe you're doing anything. I think you got bored or you got to a part that was hard and you actually had to think about shit and you gave up. So there's that. But yeah, just kind of going off of what he was saying there at the very end, the best thing to do is if you think there's something off about you, go talk to a professional. Nobody on the fucking internet can diagnose you. Nobody on the internet should be diagnosing you. Go talk to a professional if you can. I know that's not an option for everybody, which is, in my opinion, unfortunate. But especially now. But anyway, if you can talk to somebody, go talk to somebody. And if you can't, I don't know, man, find somebody you really trust who's close to you, who will just let you unload every now and then. Another thing that might be helpful, don't post these videos. Maybe talk to your camera. Don't post those videos. It's kind of like the whole concept of like writing a letter and throwing it into the fire. Do your little recording of your video and then delete it immediately. Don't post them. I'm not telling you to start a channel. That would be the last fucking thing I would suggest you do. But sometimes people it's kind of like the concept of journaling, only you're talking to a camera as opposed to journaling. Journaling also helps. I'm not going to knock journaling. Journaling is very helpful. If you think a workbook like this might help you, knock yourself out. I just, don't take advice from Amber. Really, you shouldn't be taking advice from me. I'm not a therapist. I just would say, go find a professional. That would be my first step. Because I'm not one. All right, anyway. This guy, I think, did a really good job of, again, coming at this from a very, I want to say subjective, but I don't think that's really the word I'm looking for. Anyway, I think he came from this from a very open-minded point of view, honestly. I think he tried really hard to keep an open mind throughout this. It was very clear when he hit parts where he either didn't agree with her or he didn't agree with what he was hearing coming out of the workbook. I'm mildly interested in this workbook, to be perfectly honest with you. Just because I'm mildly interested in it at this point, now that he's gone over a couple parts of it and he's been like, and of course, Amber got through, first 3 chapters of it. But I was thinking about maybe, I don't know, checking it out. Maybe. I like workbooks. I like a workbook. Maybe. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe we'll do that in the future. Maybe we won't. This is not a mental health channel. So it would be a little out of character for the channel, but I don't know. Maybe. I did write down EMDR and DBT. So in the future, I will be able to keep those two straight. Hopefully. Now that it's over and done with. Much like him, I pretty much said what I wanted to say in the moment. So if you want to argue with a point that I made, it's probably going to happen in the moment. If you want to argue with a point that I made, though, by all means, please put a timestamp in there so I can go back and look at what I said. Because I don't necessarily remember everything I said. I mean, I remember the sentiment. I don't remember exactly what I said. And sometimes that's been important, so. But I will link the video down below in the discussion down below. And since there's 3 parts to this, I will try to link all 3 bits to this in the description down below. And his channel is Therapy Today. I know it's not showing up, but there you go. You should be able to see it. Good channel. I did subscribe to it. He does have chapters that I don't think he's got anything else here. I did want to look at comments real fast. This video, as of today, which is April the 7th, has 73K views, which again is more than Amber does. He added Amber. I wonder if I should add him. Maybe see how he likes it. Got 4K likes. It's doing pretty good for him, actually. This person, oh, you beautiful, innocent soul, never be jealous of Amber's anything. This person claimed to be diagnosed with ASMR at one point. That's just one of the reasons we don't take her diagnosis at face value. Let's see if I can rank these by... No, it's just newest first. I wish I could do it by oldest first, because, well, there's a lot of comments. We're just gonna go through these. Someone says she'll definitely take notes from this. She's going to be cooking another narrative to fit that criteria. Someone says, it's intriguing how you say that many of the things on the BPD checklist are considered normative to adolescents, as many of the Amberverse believe that she is developmentally stunted and never grew out of being a teenager. Excellent insight there. It's almost as if it's his job. Another person says, sir, I sincerely hope you don't regret touching the girl will doo-doo. Never touch the poop. Another person says, she says she's not physically abusive, but there are very credible claims that she hit 3 out of her previous partners and threw things at and punched walls to intimidate the 4th. Amber does throw things. We do know that. Someone says, I wouldn't worry too much about backlash from her supporters. All of the views she gets maybe 300 viewers who actually like her. Someone said, throughout the years, Amber has claimed OCD, ASMR, bipolar, BPD, binge eating disorder, all to the extreme, and has never been diagnosed with anything formally. She was technically diagnosed with BPD disorder. She was actually diagnosed, not with BPD. My bad. Hang on. She was diagnosed with bipolar. She called bipolar BPD for a long time because she thought that was the initials for bipolar. That's a little tidbit we all have to keep in mind. Someone says, I really respect your unbiased take on this, but there is just so much context to her that is very needed in topics like this. All in all, be safe. Don't get into this rabbit hole if you aren't prepared for it. It gets awful and she could lash out. I wouldn't worry about Amber lashing out, honestly. But yeah, it's not... Like anything on the internet like this, if you're not ready to go fully down the rabbit hole... I mean, making little videos like this is great, don't get me wrong. I think there's no reason why anybody should not do something like this, but until you're fully prepared to go all the way down the rabbit hole, don't dedicate your channel, which he says in the next video. So we'll go over that later, just in a different video. Someone says, just for clarity, Amber did not get this work from a therapist. It was suggested to her from a subscriber in her public live stream on Monday, January 26th. The day her last long-distance girlfriend was trying to break up with her, her latest ex-girlfriend was a nurse in the mental health field. Amberlynn ordered these workbooks from Amazon, but claims a therapist suggested this for her. That is true. I don't know about the date, but the sequence of events is very true. This person says, I totally get what you mean about the envy of people seemingly getting more views and recognition despite putting out content that is lower effort, but trust me, Amber's position is not enviable in the slightest. We're just going to leave it at that. So, these are the top-rated ones. Also, people did not shame her for sharing her ideation. She edited and uploaded that video. Didn't tell her audience she was alive and safe and waited days to update people on her status. That's why people were mad. Oh, yeah, I remember that one. Everybody keeps bringing up the ASMR. Did you guys know Amber had ASMR? It was a joke, you guys. It was totally a joke. Anyway, overall, I really like this video. Like I said, his next video, also very good, however. I don't think it really reveals as much as this one did. This one was definitely the better of the two videos. So, all right, if you have made it this far in the video, go ahead and put a pickle. It's the first thing that popped into my head. I'm sure that's going to get every single comment flagged, but go ahead and leave a pickle in the comment section if you've made it this far in the video. If you head over to his video and leave a comment, A, he posted this on the 29th, so, you know, there you have it. And B, don't go over there and be dicks. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all, kind of a situation, so there you go. I would say that anytime I post a video on anything. But yeah, so your emoji is going to be a pickle. Let me know what you guys think. And sorry about it being broken up to 3 different bits, but I had a lot to say. So there you have it. I hope you guys are enjoying these, and
I will see you all in the next video. Bye.
This is my outro music. You can't copyright strike me because it's just me singing. This is my outro music. Thank you for watching. See you next time.